Good evening, students. Good evening, friends. Amazing turnout for the session. Awesome. I see a lot of enthusiasm from all of you, which is great. And so, without much ado, I think we'll start the session now. No, I think students are still joining in. So let's just wait for another 1 minute, and thereafter, we start the session. But in the meantime, what I can do is I'll introduce the man of the hour, who is with us, Professor Anand Prakash Mishra, sir. Uh, he is.
Bravo, you are the man of the hour. They're all your students mostly. And it's my pleasure.
So, with a lot of warm heart, I welcome Professor Mishra to this session. Just to give you an introduction about Professor Mishra to all of you who might not know him, though he's a big name in academia world. Sir did his LLB as well as Masters in Law from Campus Law Center, Delhi University, and has 15 years of experience in the legal and higher educational field. He is an administrator as well as a teacher. He teaches labor law and legal methods at Jindal Global Law School. He is also a fellow at International Institute of Higher Education Research and Capacity Building, again at Jindal Global Law School. Uh, and since a very long time, he has been leading efforts on admissions and outreach for Jindal Global Law School, and he's the director of law admissions as well as assistant dean of Jindal Global Law School. So one person having so much of responsibilities, having so much of experience, exposure is amongst us today, and I am sure whatever he has to say will be of great importance to all of you. Uh, and in today's session, we are going to take up n number of questions that a lot of you have already sent to us, which we will again be taking during the course of the interaction as well. So please hold on to your questions. I understand you will have a lot of questions, and that is absolutely okay to have questions. So we have certain set of questions. I have certain set of questions which I know you guys already have. So do listen to the session very, very carefully. And we are going to predominantly talk about why should one prefer a global law school, and very ancillary things related to the same, and we'll be discussing a lot about all of this. So hold on to your seatbelts. If your parents are interested, please invite them to sit for the session. We it would be great that they also sit and have a an exposure and idea of what we are discussing in today's time, because it will be important for it will become easier for them to take decision for you people if you would choose, or whatever college you choose at the end. So please do invite. And on this note, I think I would give the floor to you, Professor Mishra.
Thank you so much, Baba, for that generous introduction. But primarily what binds all of us is our love for law. I mean, what our students are doing now in 2021. I did say 21 years back in the year 2000, when I joined my LLB program at University of Delhi Campus Law Center. And in the same way, you also joined the National Law University in Ranchi.
Right.
So law as a program, law as a career, law as an higher education option in a big way has come to the center stage now in India. And that's evident in multiple ways. So today's topic, I will like to say a few words about that, and certainly I will like to answer as many questions I can. I will try to answer all possible questions about admissions, about scholarships, about cutoffs. I can already see a few questions coming up in the chat box. But before that, I want to say why a global law school is important, or what is the concept of global law school. Actually, Jindal Global Law School is not the first law school to use this term. The first law school to use this term was NYU, the New York University School of Law. When in early 90s, Professor Hauser started a Hauser Global Law Program. And the idea was to produce lawyers, to produce legal professionals who are trained to handle legal issues in multiple jurisdictions, not one country, one jurisdiction. Because law traditionally has been a single jurisdictional study or a single jurisdictional practice. If you study law in India, you study laws of India. If you
Correct.
practice law in India, your practice is limited to Indian territory. If you look at the Indian Penal Code or the Constitution of India or any, a statute or, uh, 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 legal document, there is a territorial limit.
Right.
And that territory is the country where the law prevails. So law traditionally has been a domestic, uh, I will say domestic profession, domestic education, and limited to a single country, single jurisdiction. If you studied law in US, you became an attorney in the US and practiced law in the US. The same applies to India or Nepal or any country. But what happened in last, say, 20, 30 years, that these boundaries, these territorial limitations vanished in a big way. And particularly when it came to areas like international trade, international investment laws, the World Trade Organizations and related laws, the United Nations and their entire system, the intergovernmental, non-governmental organizations around the world, and even the companies, corporations, which are mostly transnational, multinational in character and nature. And when they started working from multiple jurisdictions, multiple countries, so even our Tata group is not just an Indian corporation, and it's a Indian multinational having businesses, having properties, and of course having legal disputes as well world over. So basically, the legal profession and legal practice went global. And some of the areas of law, like, as I told, international trade law or international commercial arbitration,
Correct.
or even corporate law to, a large extent, or to securities law.
Right.
Being an Indian person, if you want to, say, enlist your company on New York Stock Exchange or the other stock exchanges of the world, and you want to work as, say, a securities lawyers, so for global markets, law is no more a single jurisdictional study. Law is a global profession now. And that actually led to a thinking in NYU in those times that the teaching of law should be such that it should empower a student to become a global lawyer, to become a global legal professional. And for that, what the NYU did in those times in early 90s, they created a global law program and they started inviting scholars from around the world where the professors, the jurists, taught the laws of that particular country. So from India, I remember Professor Upendra Batsi from University of Delhi those times, now he teaches at Jindal, was one of the fellows at NYU to teach Indian law to American students. And that was like the beginning of a global law school. Later on, the National University of Singapore, the NUS Faculty of Law, claimed to be the global law school of Asia, which is considered to be one of the finest law schools in not just Asia, but the whole of the world. So I think it has always ranked among top 10 law schools of the world and #1 in Asia. So Jindal Global Law School, when it started in the year 2008, and the first batch was admitted in 2009, the vision was always to set up an institution, to set up a law school which is global, which is international in all its manifestations. And that started with a global faculty, with a global curriculum, with a global research agenda, with a global interaction among all the stakeholders, and that all leading to global legal education. And today, after 12 years in 2021, I am with Jindal Global Law School for last 10 years. And I'm very delighted to share with you, Vaibhav and the students, that in these 12 years, our law school has actually become a global law school and comparable with the best in the world. If you look at the QS World University rankings by subject law, where none of the Indian law school could find a place till 2019 out of top 300 law schools in the world. Today, JGLS has become one of the top 100 law schools, and we are ranked 76th in the world, and even ahead of many law schools in the UK, in the US, in Australia, in Canada, and many law schools which were set up 50 years or 100 years before us. So it has been a great journey, and with some 470 faculty members today, uh, we are also one of the largest law faculty in whole of Asia. So it has been a great journey, and that is like the building of a global law school and how we have made it happen. It's not just about offering the core courses mandated by Bar Council of India, which any law college of the country has to offer.
Correct.
Any law college, any law school, anywhere in India, they have to follow the Bar Council of India curriculum.
Absolutely.
But to globalize that curriculum, you have to teach law in a comparative and international perspective.
Correct.
And that is possible in every area of law. You have to add further with a list of elective courses which professors can offer if they come from different jurisdictions. For example, our professors offer courses in European Union laws.
Right.
Now, or say American constitutional law, or different areas of law which cover even a lot of comparative and international perspective. So that is possible because the faculty members come from some 25 different countries. There are trained lawyers who have been members of the bar in New York, in Singapore, even in Iceland and New Zealand, and even countries like Russia and from around the world. And a lot of them from India, actually majority of them, who studied abroad and came back and started teaching, some with a lot of practice I will say law firm experience also. And this all helped the law school in creating some 30 research centers dedicated in different areas of law, because when you have a pool of 470 faculty members, that means in any area of law, you have 20 to 30 dedicated faculty members teaching and researching. So this all has helped the law school become one of the prominent institutions in legal education in whole of Asia today. If we look among the Asian law school, I think we are the only law school from India and South Asia in the global rankings, and also, among the top 20 law school in whole of Asia, including China and Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore. And it's like, I will say, an achievement. And that is all led by our founding Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar. You must be knowing about him. He had visited National Law University, Ranchi,
He did.
I think twice, and delivered lecture there. And
Right.
we had very good time. He was invited by the Jharkhand Judicial Academy also. And I had an opportunity to visit NUSRL Ranchi in those times. So it's that vision which has culminated in being what a law school we are today. But for our students who have decided to study law now, I must tell that uh, for undergraduate education in our country, I don't find many academic programs or degrees which could impart as diverse and as in-depth study which a 5-year undergraduate law degree provides. And that is the reason why uh, a lot of bright students today are thinking of studying law. I did a 3-year LLB program. In our time, there were hardly 3 or 4 national law schools that time.
Correct.
And a 3-year LLB program used to be like the mainstream law degree program. Today, the situation has changed. Though at Jindal, we offer a very strong 3-year LLB program. We are nurturing it. We have strengthened it. We are even getting a lot of students graduating from foreign universities to do 3-year LLB, graduates from King's College London and London School of Economics, and even universities in the US, from Boston University, from University of Massachusetts. They are coming to study law in Sonipat in Jindal. But the 5-year law program, I must say, has been the most successful experiments in legal education ever in our country. And National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, which has started it, and it was further led by the set of, say, 20 plus National Law University system. So it has been a great development, a great thing for Indian legal education today. And we can safely claim that today we have some really good world-class law schools, unlike the situation 20 years back.
Right.
So our students today are actually lucky and fortunate that way that they have multiple options to choose from.
To choose from.
Because I remember when I thought about studying law, the only idea which came to me was University of Delhi. There was no second option. There was for LLB 3-year program, Government Law College Mumbai or ILS Law College Pune, or maybe the Government Law College in Chennai. There were a few options, or BHU. They were the only options.
Correct.
Today, I think with the 5-year law program, it has become like one of the most important higher education opportunities in our country. And further, in some way, I will say law is the new liberal arts. Whether you want to become a courtroom lawyer or a judge or a legal professional or a law firm associate or partner, or I mean, a full-fledged lawyer or not, even if you want to leave the legal field, if you don't want to pursue law, but if you are armed with a law degree, if you have studied law in all its manifestations in, say, a period of 5 years of time, you are prepared for life. Whether you want to become an entrepreneur, whether you want to become a novelist, whether you want to do anything, the law degree is always going to, uh, you know, help you throughout your life. And of course, I mean, in our country, almost 1/3 of country's administration, country's system is in a way reserved for lawyers. The 3 principal organs of the state, the judiciary, is exclusively reserved for lawyers,
Correct.
whether as judges of the court or as advocates, as officers of the court.
Correct.
It's exclusively reserved for lawyers. No non-lawyer can enter into judiciary, though lawyers can enter into both executive and legislature, and they have done that in good numbers.
Yes.
So uh, even in Indian context, not just in the global context, law has assumed much more significance, much more importance today. And when I see, I mean, today in global context, some 25 of our graduates have passed the New York bar exam and California bar exam. Few days back, I heard one of our graduate becoming a lawyer in Ontario in Canada, and qualifying the bar exam there, getting a license to practice law there. There are students who are, graduates who are now qualified lawyers in Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne. There are few in Singapore, in Hong Kong, even in United Arab Emirates. There are around 40, 50 in London, in UK, in and around London. So it's like a global community which is being built up of Indian lawyers who are actually providing their expertise, their legal services internationally. And that is like the vision of a global law school or a law program which wants to train students to become global lawyers. So I think the students who are attending this session, I will congratulate them for choosing law, for thinking about law so early, and to be committed to study law. And also, I must tell them that they are being taught by one of the best people like Vaibhav, who has graduated from Anush Law University and commits himself, to the cause of legal education and helping the students getting into the best law schools. I'm so delighted to hear from you that your students are now in the final year or fourth year senior students at even at our law school, at Jindal Global Law School in Sonipat. So I will actually like to invite your questions, and let us try to answer as many questions of our students as possible in this brief interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Amazing what you have said, and I know a lot of students would be very, very, fidgety right now to ask their questions. But students, please hold on. As excited as you guys are, so am I very excited to ask few questions. And before I take up your questions, I have two questions which I would want to ask, sir. So my questions from your questions. All right. So one thing that I would like to ask here is about the faculty members, because that is something which I always feel uh, provides, or rather, when your roots are very strong, when the faculty base acts as the roots. So if the faculty base is very strong, then the student community is by far going to do definitely well in their lives. Either they do law or they don't do law, regardless of it, they will come out and will do great in life. So when you say that Jindal Global Law School has faculty members from across the world, they have global faculty. Is it that these faculties are permanent faculties who keep taking regular classes, or are these faculties, with whom, of course, you can't have an interaction with them on a regular basis? Like for someone like Professor Upendra Bakshi, I myself have read so many of his articles in law school with a dictionary right on my right hand side. So of course I cannot meet him on a regular basis. But is it that they frequently keep interacting with students, or what is the case with that?
Vaibhav, it's because of our higher education culture, I will say, that such a query emanates in the first place. Because in India, many colleges, what they do a lot of teaching through the visiting faculty system or guest faculty system, or lawyers coming from the courtroom after or even before going to court. They teach for 2 hours in the morning, and right. Then they go to the court, or they come on a Saturday or after court hours and teach. So at Jindal Global Law School, all the 470 faculty members who are today, including our junior faculty members who are even academic tutors, and then we have assistant lecturers, assistant professors, associate professors, and full professors. They all are permanent full-time people. We don't have any visiting faculty for that matter, or any guest or ad hoc faculty. They are all, so Professor Baxi, for example, is a full-time faculty with us, but his teaching is actually limited to the senior most classes. His course is offered to select number of students who choose, who are offered that course, and they are taught by him. He is of course assisted by some junior faculty member as well, but all the faculty members at Jindal Global Law School, including all foreign faculty members, they actually reside in Sonipat. They all have accommodation, their faculty housing in Sonipat, within the campus or near the campus. We have accommodation for almost 600 teaching staff. So it's a fully residential system. So everyone which you see in the website or elsewhere, Professor Gudmundur Eriksson, Professor Veselin Popovsky, Professor Armin Rosenkranz, all those people, they stay on campus. They teach on full-time basis. Right now in the COVID situation, of course, the classes, the physical campus is not open since March 2020. And professors are taking online classes from their places. But otherwise, everyone reside on campus on full-time basis. Though we have an honorary adjunct faculty system, where some very senior people in the profession, like Abhishek Manu Singhvi, for example, senior advocate, like say Parag Tripathi. So we actually got some 20, 30 senior counsels of the Supreme Court and the partners of the leading law firms who offer one credit course to our final year student in their select areas, and they are honorary professors. So they do not get any, salary or that. They honorary offer their services. They don't need it. They are so senior people that it's we are lucky to receive their patronage in the way of, they are offering their knowledge and sharing it with our students. So that is a different system. But otherwise, all faculty members are full-time permanent people. And of course, every student will not get an opportunity to taught by all faculty members, because one class, but there is a good chance in a 5 years of your studies in 10 semesters, you are going to be taught by some, say, 70, 80, or maybe sometimes if you add electives, maybe 100 good faculty members in the law school, depending on what courses you choose. And also, if you associate with a research center, you can work closely with many faculty members in some select areas of study and research.
Right. So that is something which I think students should have taken a note of. That one concern that generally you people have is, and like I say, having gone through that entire 5 years of rigorous training myself in law school, I understand what is the importance of having a good faculty, very strong faculty base. So having 470 plus odd permanent faculties residing in that residential campus goes on to mean a lot of things. And like sir said, you can always join certain research centers, be associated, you get to learn from different faculty members that you would want to maybe learn from. So one big time query that I always had in mind was about the faculty, which I think I now am very convinced about. So next question, sir, you very rightly said that law is a liberal art, and I have not seen anyone put this so crisp and so meticulously. So law indeed has become a liberal art, and yes, there are things, or rather everything is there which we have to learn comparatively. So if I just go back to my experience when I was interning while in my law school with Thomson Reuters, I was assigned a task to make a report on Prevention of Corruption Act, but it was something that I had to do as a comparative study between the laws of US and the laws of UK. And very frankly, I struggled. I struggled because that was not the approach which we had in our law school. Now, would you say that this is the approach of teaching every subject uh, in a comparative fashion with at least the major common law countries of the world, or is it that only after a certain period, like in my fourth year or my fifth year, that I get to learn the comparative analysis or comparative reading of the laws?
Thank you for that question, Vaibhav. It's a very good question. So what I would like to tell you that any subject of law, any area of law can be taught in comparative and international perspective. Even
Absolutely.
following the Bar Council of India curriculum, for example, we are doing Indian Penal Code and say a professor is teaching the provision of culpable homicide and murder, how the same offense is treated in, say, the British Penal Code, the British criminal law, or the Canadian criminal law, or the criminal laws of different countries. If you have that approach and you include those things in your academic curriculum, it's very much possible if you include the, I will say, the journal articles, the research papers, and also academic materials from other countries, other universities. So in Jindal Global Law School, every course is taught unless something is absolutely domestic, where there is no, a scope of internationalizing it. For example, teaching Hindu Marriage Act.
Correct.
It's not possible to internationalize that unless it's an issue between the marriage of one Indian with an American and both are Hindus or things like that.
Correct.
So it's every subject, the curriculum is designed that way. And a lot of foreign materials, international materials are added to the readings because the faculty members come from that background. If your taught law professor has a PhD from Oxford University, he's not going to teach you torts just from the Indian perspective. A lot of materials will come from what Oxford Law faculty teaches to their students. So in Jindal, you will find a lot of faculty members who have taught in foreign universities, who have taught in places like Stanford, in Harvard, in Cornell, in Oxford and Cambridge, in King's College London, a lot of places. They come from multiple, that kind of experiences. And even the existing faculty members at Jindal, they also go and teach in foreign universities, be it in China or Korea or Australia or different countries around the world. So that gives a lot of inputs for our students in almost every course they study in the law school. And it starts from the very first year. The students will feel the difference. And of course, they built upon it when they progress to, say, the third year and fourth year, and when they start generating sufficient interest in research in one or two particular areas, and they get associated with the experts in those areas.
Wow, it's like I'm pretty convinced that what you said is absolutely correct. That they need to learn that exposure. And again, like I said, back in your time, this would not have been the approach. And back in even my time in 2011 to 16, or my university did not have this approach. So getting that approach and getting that exposure early on, I think, is phenomenal, because law, the entire market of law, is changing dramatically, and everything is becoming cross jurisdictional in today's time. So learning in that manner and learning in that way is something which is the need of the hour. So, sir, moving on to the third question, which I have not seen so far any of the students asking. Again, it would be my question to you. Uh, Another very important aspect of a law school life for a student is the library. Most of the time, you would also agree, back in your time and even in my time, we spend a lot of time in libraries. going through journals, going through articles, books, commentaries. In my time, of course, it went ahead a little more because we had e-libraries, something like a Supreme Court cases, a Westlaw or a Manupatra. So what is, or rather, how would you describe Jindal Global Law School's library and e-library?
So I will tell you, if we had a very rich library in Delhi University as well. It's called Law Faculty Library.
Correct.
And the Delhi University library system used to be a robust system, having a central library called CRL, Central Reference Library. Then there was a Ratan Tata Library of Delhi School of Economics and FMS. And there was a law faculty library, and there was a central science library. It's a robust library system. In Jindal, the library which was started in 2009, it was named as Global Library. And the first thing which was done, I mean, of course, there are sufficient copies, the physical copies of books, but subscription of all possible academic journals. And it was an effort to make an e-library, an electronic library, a library with all possible legal databases from day one. So today, when online classes are happening, I think our students are not suffering in terms of, because it's like millions of books. I think 125,000 of ebooks were added in 1 year, and a million of books are available for download, for use, and through the e-library system. And every student has access to the library virtually on the entire campus through the Wi-Fi network. But otherwise also there is a remote access given now to every student and faculty members. And in my view, it's a quite rich library. I mean, whichever academic journal you think of, and whichever legal databases of any country. So that, of course, the LexisNexis and Westlaw and the Indian legal databases are there. But even if you want to find, say, Australian or Canadian or American or British cases, it has been a rich collection. I mean, it's like, and mostly it's available electronically. So the physical libraries, of course, it's a beautiful place. If when you come to campus, library is actually one of the most beautiful places in the university. So I think for the law school, it's a great library, and every year we are adding to it. For any law student, I feel it will be a pleasure, whatever resource you look for. And then we have some 25, 30 member library team, including some very experienced library professionals, even having, MPhil and PhD in library science, who help students using those legal databases, as well as finding the relevant material for the students and faculty members. So on a regular basis, our global library conducts workshops and organizes a lot of training programs for students and faculty members and the whole university community to use the library effectively. So it's a pretty good system. Students will really enjoy, and that is actually needed because to build a culture of research and writing, what prevails in a big way in our law school, a robust library system, and particularly in the electronic format, in the virtual format, is a must. Right. So apart from a good physical library, I feel what is the strength of JGU library is having almost all possible legal databases required for research, required for the students and faculty members alike.
And it's not just
so
that.
I will encourage a student to go to the website. The JGU library has its own website.
Right.
and it's even hosted on a very popular, it's called Koha, where a lot of libraries of the world host their websites. So students can go and visit and even have a look at the services available for the users of the library.
So just a quick follow-up question to this, sir. So if I were at the campus right now, till what time I could use the library?
When the campus is open, right now in virtual mode, it's 24/7. You
Of
can
course.
use the whole library.
Right.
When the physical campus is open, uh, the reading hall is generally kept open 24/7. It's only very few hours it is closed in the maybe I have to check with our library director the exact
Okay.
timings, but during the exam times and it's just 24/7. Even other times, the reading hall where students read and you know it's the university tries to keep it open as long as possible. So there
Right.
is no such thing like 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. the library opens and 5 or 6 p.m. it closes,
Right.
like a government office. It's
Correct.
not like that because even classes are conducted till late night in some cases.
Right.
In our law school system, from 8 a.m. to say 4 p.m., it's classes for the regular core courses, which
Right.
are like compulsory courses. And from 4 p.m. in the evening till 9 or 10 p.m., it's all elective courses. So
Acha.
the classes go on till night because it's a
Right.
fully residential system. So
Hmm.
everybody is on campus.
Correct.
Students have liberty to choose the time slots and classrooms and things like that.
Right. Right. So I think that is actually the best utilization of having people together on a living together in a campus to utilize that time so that students have elective courses to choose from and to maybe read. So now, sir, I think I will come to some student questions.
Absolutely.
So one of the one of the first questions I would ask is, what is the minimum percentile to get in a 5-year program or a 3-year program or a LLM program?
Wonderful. So for 5-year law program, which I think most of the students are
Right.
attending this session, the cutoff was 80 percentile in our March administration. And any student who is keen about studying at Jindal, I wish they should aspire to get at least 80 percentile score in June exam also.
Hmm.
Because a lot of things depend. For last 5 years, I will be candid with you. The cutoff has been almost uniform. It has been 60 percentile and above students have been invited for admission. Anyone below 60 percentile score have not been able to secure admission in last 4-5 years. This year, the cutoff is expected to go higher because of increase in number of test takers and other factors. So genuinely, anyone getting a score above 80 percentile is a safe score. Anyone below 80 and say above 75 will have a chance. Anyone below 70 may not have any chance. And it all depends because
Right.
we don't know how many students are going to take the June exam.
Correct.
When the result will come, the admissions committee of the law school, which is chaired by none other than the Dean of Law School and also our founding Vice Chancellor, takes a decision about cutoffs and all. So, and we follow that strictly. We don't have any quota or any seat for anybody. It's all admitted purely through the merit in entrance exam. The 100% of our intake is through LSAT India merit list. So we don't have any NRI quota, any foreign national quota, any other quota, not even one seat for the management or something what private institutions are known for. So a lot of people don't believe that there is no way to get admission in Jindal Global Law School unless one qualifies the LSAT India exam and secures the cutoff determined by the admissions committee. So the cutoff in March was 80 percentile. I expect a similar cutoff in June as well.
Right, right.
In LLB 3-year program, our cutoff was 50 percentile. The number of takers is smaller. In LLM also the similar thing. The number of takers in LSAT is much bigger for the 5-year law program.
Right.
It's a very small number in 3-year LLB and LLM. So the cutoff is lower in those programs. And we also use other scores in those programs. For example, we have a JSAT exam for JSAT law, what we call, for LLB and LLM program. We also utilize CLAT PG or Delhi University LLM entrance scores. Right. So other entrance exam scores as well. But in 5-year law, it's a strictly as per LSAT India merit. So there is no other way to, get admitted.
Right. So for 5 years, it's LSAT India 2021 that you guys will have to write. June attempt, take it, try scoring above 80 percentile. The chances are very high that you can secure
Absolutely.
Jindal Global Law School.
I will be candid with you. Every year we receive hundreds of students from around the country who approach me, who approach admissions office, who even go to our Vice Chancellor or Chancellor, Mr. Jindal, seeking admission, but those who have not taken LSAT India exam, they have written a CLAT exam or an IELTS exam or some other exam. But even if you are, say, a topper in any of the exams or a topper in CBSE board or ICSE board, you are the best candidate to study law. Our admission rules doesn't allow you to be admitted if you have not taken the entrance exam, the LSAT India test. Right. So we have no option but to just say no, and the students have to apply next year if they are keen about studying at Jindal. And that is why this session is very, very important, to let all the students know that if you want to keep the Jindal option with you, you must take the LSAT India test in June. You must not miss the exam. And the other reason is there are some 20 different law schools affiliated to this test.
Correct.
So you have multiple options.
Right, right. Agreed. So, sir, now I think I need to come to the most obvious question, which I'm sure you would be expecting. The fee factor for Jindal Global Law School. I understand when you are giving so much of facilities and so much of exposure, you also need to pay to the faculty members, that infrastructure. It takes money to build up all of that. So what are the scholarship opportunities like if someone who does not come from a very, very affluent family? So how does he or she approach Jindal Global? What are the scholarship opportunities like? And generally, what is the fee that a per annum fee is something that Jindal Global charges?
So Vaibhav, the tuition fee for the 5-year law program or even the 3-year LLB program is 6 lakh rupees per year.
Right.
And a scholarship is available only on the tuition fee. The highest scholarship which we award is 50% of tuition fee. That is 3 lakh per year. So 50 students in the BA, BBA, LLB program can receive 3 lakh per year. That is 50% of tuition fee in a scholarship based on their LSAT merit. So any student who gets 95 percentile above a score is eligible to apply for a scholarship and receive a scholarship. Our scholarship policy also has a parental income limit criteria. So that means if the parental income exceeds, the annual parental income exceeds 30 lakh rupees per year, the university presumes that the student can afford to study on his own or her own, and only those students are given the scholarships whose parental income criteria is satisfied. But 50 students can study at 50% tuition fee in 5-year law program. Overall, 125 students are given 50% tuition fee, and the scholarship policy changes every year. It's an annual thing which the scholarship committee decides. And this year, I am actually very happy to tell you, it's almost like one full class. So if any student who thinks he or she may not afford to study at Jindal, the only way is to prepare well for LSAT and get a score above 95 percentile. If you get a 98 or 99 percentile, if you are in that 2% of students, you can expect a 50% tuition fee concession and receive through a scholarship. And generally, the scholarships continue for all 5 years unless a student is failing their courses, unless they are debarred on attendance grounds, they are not attending classes, or is some disciplinary issue, some disciplinary proceedings against the student, take place because of, their activities on campus. Otherwise, the scholarships continue all 5 years. So 90% of the students, in my knowledge, who receive a scholarship at the time of admission, they get it continued all 5 years. But then there are students whose scholarships are reduced or even revoked because
Right.
of, because it's some merit is needed.
Of
You need
course.
not be a topper in the class, but
Right.
at least you should pass your courses.
Correct.
You should
That's
not
the
be
bare
barred on
minimum.
attendance grounds.
Right. Right. Agreed. So again, so to all my students, now you know why you need to start preparing very seriously for LSAT India June attempt, because if you are there in the top 5% of the people of the population, you stand to get a maximum of 50%. So either you come to a fee which generally is also charged by NLUs, slightly higher than what NLUs charge. So you are almost in that bracket range. So, and from here, I think one follow-up question which has been asked by students is there is bound to be comparisons between Jindal Global and national law universities.
And
National law universities.
okay, see, Vaibhav, every university, every institution is unique and they have their own role to play. Ideally, we should not get into such comparisons because national law universities, or for that matter, central universities like Delhi University or Banaras Hindu University or Aligarh Muslim University, every university has its role to play. And they all are good.
Correct.
So basically, you have to weigh your options.
Right.
And we are lucky that in Indian situation, we have all kind of institutions. If you want to study law, any student in India coming from any economic background can study law and become a lawyer, become a judge, become whatever in the field of law with his or her hard work.
Right.
So, uh, uh, what I will say, it's not fair to compare institutions also.
Right.
Because if you look at the size of, say, a national law university, they are created by a state government law, a statute, as a dedicated law university.
Correct.
With a small class, with a small faculty size, with a small campus, and their own system. Now, Jindal is a multidisciplinary university. There are 10 schools. Law school is one of them.
Right.
Law school is the first school and the largest school, but that in no way reduces the importance of our, say, international affairs school.
Right.
Which is a very good school dedicated to international relations and political science and global affairs studies. We have a public policy school, a journalism and communication school, a liberal arts school, a business school. There is a comprehensive BBA, MBA, BBA, MBA program. There is an art and architecture school also. It's a multidisciplinary university.
Right.
So it's not fair to compare. And frankly, with the size which it's like 4,000 students of law, 470 faculty members, it's a 1:8 faculty student ratio. So if you have to find anything comparable, You have to think about the law schools in Singapore or Hong Kong or those international law schools which operate at that scale, that size. Like Harvard Law School has 300 professors,
Right.
and they admit a class of 550 JD candidates.
Correct.
And you can see the influence of the law school in the entire, I will say, United States system. So Jindal cannot be like that in, say, 12 years of existence,
Correct.
a 300-year-old university.
Right.
But the model is like that. It's a large premier institution. And of course, it's a very competitive place. So when students join the law school, you have to really compete with the students coming from almost every part of the country, but even from around the world. Even this year, I have students who have applied from the United States, from Bangkok, from Malaysia, those who have done their schooling from a lot of Middle East countries, from Singapore, from many places. So even now the student body is getting internationalized in some way. Though the percentage is very small, but slowly it's building up. A lot of students from other countries are also coming. Most of them of Indian origin only, but their schooling is in foreign countries, and they are
right
about studying law here. So it's a very competitive place that way. So we should not compare the institutions. What my suggestion is, a student should take as many entrance exams they can. It's important to write CLAT. It's important to write IELTS. At the same time, equally important to take LSAT. If you are selected in all three, you have a CLAT offer from a National Law University, you have an IELTS offer from NLU Delhi, you have an LSAT offer from, say, Jindal Global Law School. Now you are in a winning situation. You have to weigh the options and join the best possible option. But if you are not taking the entrance exam, you are simply eliminating one option on your own, which cannot be revived later on.
Right. So precisely, so all my students precisely do what I say, and this is exactly what Professor Mishra is also saying. So listen to what sir is saying. Give all the entrance examinations. You will have options to choose from, which will always be beneficial to you.
Even Maharashtra CET, I will say, Vaibhav.
Yes.
No harm in writing the Maharashtra CET exam.
Absolutely.
You have a government law college Mumbai option, ILS Pune.
ILS Pune. Yes.
Two other options get open.
Right.
Your choice to go there or not.
Or not. Absolutely.
First you get selected, get your name, and then take a call.
Absolutely.
A student should be in a winning situation.
Yes. So, sir, another important question, if time permits you, another important question which I saw which students had asked is, where do you see, like what is the stature of the alumni base of Jindal Global Law School in present context? Like what are people doing? Like how did they end up going to say abroad and becoming a member of the New York bar, or going to Ontario, or maybe doing something in India, becoming partners? Because I know a few people who have become partners in law firms, having graduated from the Global Law School, and so it would not be like a very very having been established 12 years back. I think it's a relatively very smaller duration within which people graduating and becoming partners at such a young age. So where do you see all these alumni, and does it help a normal student? Does this alumni connect help a normal student who's studying there?
So Vaibhav, our first batch of 5-year law program graduated in 2014. That was 2009-14 batch,
Right.
And since then, till 2021, it's like the current batch is yet to graduate, but 7 batches have graduated in our 5-year law program. And then there are, of course, alumni of our LLB and LM program as well. What I see today, uh, a lot of our students of our previous batches, if I look at what they are doing now, uh, one marked difference, one or two marked difference I could see. One, students, a lot of them making international careers primarily by starting higher education abroad, going to a foreign university for masters. So every year you will find a lot of our graduates are studying in Columbia, Cornell, Michigan, Pennsylvania, a lot of foreign universities, and then Oxford, Cambridge, King's College, London School of Economics, and those places. And uh, I mean, some 20%, 15 to 20% of class goes abroad on, to pursue LLM or other higher education qualifications. And many of them try to build their careers even in, foreign countries. Around one-fourth of the class join law firms. So, of course, some of them are now becoming associate partners or even partners in younger law firms, but it will take time. It's
Right.
just 7-year-old alumni.
Correct.
So but I think it's the situation which was there in say 2014 and the first batch graduated, and even in those times I remember the Amarchand Mangaldas was one firm. It was not divided into Cyril Amarchand and
Correct.
Sarful Amarchand.
Right.
4 of our graduates of the first batch got into Amarchand Mangaldas, and many of them got into other law firms. And a popular legal website called Legally India did a story about it. They actually ranked Jindal first batch placements among top 5 law schools.
I remember reading that article. I
It was
was
a very old story.
right.
So now the situation is completely different. Around 36 of our graduates this year have got day zero placements, and 10 of them in Cyril Amarchand,
Right.
around 8 of them in Trilegal, around another 8 of them in, I think, Ketan. You have to have a look at the, so 36 of them got a job in top law firms 1 year in advance.
Right.
And then some, so the students who are aspiring, because the legal industry is limited, the
Right.
number of law firm jobs are very limited, and law is a profession. Law is not like an MBA degree where
Right.
you graduate and you go for a corporate job, either
Correct.
you do a marketing or finance or HR or whatever, but an MBA means you do a corporate job. Law opens multiple gateways. You may choose to become, say, a human rights worker, a human rights activist, or you want to become a judge and or a civil servant or a hardcore practicing lawyer, or you may prefer a judicial clerkship over
Correct.
a law firm job. I know some of our graduates left a top law firm offer to go to University of Cambridge to pursue an LLM a few years
Right.
back. And she was so delighted that, and she had a plum offer. She was getting one of the highest salaries at the young age of say 21, 22 years after being graduated. A girl, a student from Bangalore, if I remember correctly. But she left it and went to Cambridge because she got a scholarship and she wanted to study further.
Right.
So law opens so many pathways. And that is why as a law school, I believe no good law schools should assure or guarantee or talk about jobs. Law schools are not job placement agencies.
Correct. Correct.
Jobs are one part of it. And if you really work hard, if you handle your internships well, a lot of jobs today are being achieved through the PPOs, the pre-placement offers.
Right.
And they are purely based on your performance, how you handle your internships. So, and also I will like to say that a study of law is an investment for life. It's not like an MBA degree or a hotel management diploma where everything is weighed as per your first job.
Correct.
That this is the ROI on, I have invested this much. That doesn't work in, say, any professional stream like medicine or law or architecture, isn't it?
Right. Right.
So, but I'm very hopeful that our legal industry will also expand. It's expanding already.
Right.
Today, we are having law firms with, say, 500, 700, or if Amarchand would not have splitted, we have crossed 1,000 lawyers working in a firm.
Correct.
So we are having large law firms today, which were not there 20 years back.
No, they weren't. Agreed.
And also, lawyers are exploring other pathways.
Right. Absolutely.
So if you study well, if you are sincere, if you develop those skills, I believe lawyers themselves, each and every lawyer is so valuable, so precious. They can add great value to the society, to the organization they are working for, to themselves, or simply they can start representing, people, organizations, companies, corporations, anybody in the court of law or tribunals or everywhere. The license to practice law, the license to appear before any court of or tribunal is, I think, the greatest reward of studying law.
Right. So I think these were largely, sir, the questions that students had. I'm sure there would be a lot of other questions, which we might not have been able to take. But since we have also overshot our time, I would not. I do not really intend to take a lot of your time. So thank you so very much, sir, for taking out this opportunity and being so very patient with each of the questions that the students have asked. To all the students, you can always reach out to Jindal University. You can write them a mail. They'll come back to you with a reply. You can maybe book an appointment to speak with some of the other people. Sir, could you just help them with how to approach Jindal?
Absolutely. I mean, the students are most welcome to approach the admissions office, and they should visit the university website. Actually, we encourage in a big way to come and visit the campus and spend time on campus. Unfortunately, we are living in a situation where we are prohibiting everyone to go outside their homes.
Correct.
But what I feel, today we are having students from every leading school in the country. So whichever school you come from, for example, in Mumbai, you come from, say, Cathedral and John Connon School, or say Dhirubhai Ambani International School, or say Poddar International School, say Leelavati or Jamnabai Nursing School, or in Delhi, you come from DPS RK Puram or DPS Vasant Kunj or DPS Noida or any school for that matter. You have some senior studying at Jindal.
Correct. Agreed.
So you can immediately connect with your senior. You can check everything with them. And it's an information age. Everything is available, online. And the key is the entrance exam. So right now, without exploring other things, my view is a student should focus on the entrance test. And the role of mentors like you is more critical than anybody else, because only you can help them, get into the law schools. And once they start receiving admission offers, then they are in a position to choose and make their choices and take a decision.
Right. So to sum up what sir has said, it is important that right now all of you focus on LSAT India examination rather than worrying about how do I go abroad, how do I become a lawyer in United States, or how do I become a corporate lawyer, how do I practice international law. Rather than focusing on all these issues right now is the time when you focus on LSAT India examination. whether you're writing a 3-year LLB or a 5-year LLB or a master's, you want to pursue a master's, whatever, you need to focus on an entrance examination at this stage. And once you get to Jindal Global Law School, you will have mentors like, Professor Anand. You'll have 470 plus odd professors to help you, to guide you, and to mentor you and to tell you as to how can you do this or that or whatever you wish to do. So don't focus on that. Right now, your sole focus should be, again, if you're not looking for scholarships, 80 percentile or above. I'll take that liberty, sir, to say that figures. And if you're looking for some scholarships, try to be that top 2 to top 5% of the, takers.
Yes, takers, yeah.
And again, this is something which you would never know as to, who all or how many students have taken the examination. So your competition is not just with the friend circles you know. Your competition is sitting somewhere in, say, Delhi or a Chennai or a Calcutta and studying very, very hard. So focus on LSAT India examinations. So any tips that you would want to share with the students for LSAT India?
What I understand about the test is it's a test of reasoning.
Correct.
And it's unlike the, say, CLAT exam, where they test you on legal reasoning or legal aptitude questions or GK or current affairs question. In LSAT, there is no GK or current affairs. There is no legal aptitude. There is no mathematics.
No mathematics.
So it's a pure analytical reasoning, logical reasoning, and reading comprehension.
Correct.
And a lot of materials are now available. This year is actually a good year for LSAT preparation. If you go to LSAC website, the discoverlaw.in,
correct,
you will find a lot of free materials available. Some 200 pages of materials are available for free download. You can download 4 past year papers. You can download some sample question and answers. You can even purchase the LSAT papers and preparation materials. There is even a Khan Academy course which on LSAT, which LSAC of the US has developed for the American LSAT exam, but that is equally good for the Indian students. So a lot of resources are available.
Correct.
It's just about improving your reasoning skills and solving more and more reasoning questions. You should be able to identify those LSAT type reasoning questions, practice it, and give your best shot. I think even if some students start studying from today, the next 25 days will be good enough to secure a very high percentile.
Correct.
It's a pure aptitude test.
Right.
So my all good wishes for the students. It just need you have to be confident, and because it's an online test, so follow the protocol laid down by the test taking bodies and take the test well. There is no negative marking also. So ideally there are around 90 to 100 questions.
Correct.
Divided in 4 sections of 35 minutes each. So it's a 2-hour, 20 minutes paper. So you should be answering all the questions.
Right.
And then try to maximize the correct answers. And that will happen once you practice LSAT type reasoning question.
Correct.
So practice is the key, and becoming serious about the test. In previous years, I have met a lot of students who actually prepared whole year or more for CLAT and IELTS and all exam and just took LSAT without any preparation. Some of them could not qualify. Some of them could get a low percentile score. When I checked, I realized they did not prepare for the exam at all.
Correct.
So that should not happen with the students attending this session. Every entrance exam is important and needs preparation. The good thing is your board exam is postponed and not going to happen, I think, in the month of May and June. So you finish your LSAT test during 29th May to 2nd June.
Correct.
And even you will get good time for your board exams to start.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. And just to add one more thing, IMS has LSAT India mocks as well. So all of you are part of IMS. You have access to it. Anyone who is not a part of it, you can always visit IMS website and you can just purchase the mock series, mock package, and practice as much as you can. So, like Sir said, practice is something which is required for every entrance examination, and I completely agree to that thought process. The more you practice, the better your chances are to crack the examination. So, on that note, I cannot really thank you enough, sir. You took out that time. We overshot our time by like 20 minutes. You have been very, very kind and very patient to all our students. Thank you so very much for being a part of this and for enlightening our students about Jindal Global Law School and our like what's the approach of or what is the need and the approach of a global law school in India. So on that note, I would thank you. And before all the students leave, I would request earnestly to leave some feedback for the session so that we can improve upon the next time we hold a session like this. So please leave a feedback about the session. It would be great. And thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you so much. And all the very best for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.